Good morning, traders. It's Samurai Trader here. I'd like to do a market recap on the FESX, one of the European futures markets. The pre-market opens up at 6 p.m. actually 5 p.m. Queensland time, 6 p.m. in the rest of Australia. Of course, very late over in the very early morning in the USA. A lot of traders outside Europe aren't too familiar with the FESX. It's got a fantastic volume each day of contracts. For an example, we had Martin Luther King Day, where the banks were closed in the US yesterday, yet it still turned over 800 odd thousand contracts, and it tends to mirror the amount of contracts traded each day compared to the ES, the E-minis. So there's great volume. However, you don't seem to get as many of the wild moves as in compared to, say, the Nasdaq and the Russell and the Dow, the YM, as other markets. However, at 10 euros per point, so it trades in points at 10 euros per point. It does have some nice volatility, not massive, but it still has some very nice trade setups on a daily basis. So let's have a look at some of the opportunities that we had yesterday in the market, and I'll be giving it's a number of you have requested I recap this market on a regular basis, so I'll end up recapping it 2 or 3 times a week to give you a general idea. So here we can see the market has opened. It's rallied up. We had a T1 signal which formed a T11, which is a higher low, and up it went. We then bounced off the cyan, which is the 89 EMA, and we had a T1 form. Now our T1 we wouldn't have entered until down here. Why is that? Because remember, our zero lag needs to turn color, it needs to roll over. So we can see here it rolled over, then finally we picked up 3 to 4, and that's another thing. How many points we're after? We're after 3 to 4 points on average. When I have a really good T89 setup, I'm after 5 points on average. So it's a great market. So we roll over here. We had a pivot bounce, and this is another great thing about this market. You get lots of pivot bounces, and you can see here you actually got in here, bounced up. That was good for 3 ticks. It rolls over, and we had a T69 which got us back into the market here, and it just fell away. Further along, we had money on the floor trade, a T10. Once again, we've got a rising long-term stochastic. The short-term comes down, kicks back up. We're virtually breaking through on the channel. The zero lag supports, the magenta is supporting our trade, and away it goes. We then have a slingshot, which is a T2 down here, which coincides with a paint bar plot. You can see here we've got our paint bars plotted. We have here a higher low, which makes it a T11, a highly accurate trade that we love. And you also got a pivot bounce. Now, quite frankly, normally speaking, you probably would have been in that for a loser, and let's just mark that up, because you would have entered there, and that trade was only good, that only ticked down 2 points. So that would generally suggest at 2 points that you would have had a losing trade there. However, if you consider the amount of, I think we've had 6 or 7 winning trades so far in a row, it makes it 7 now, I think it is, with the T11. Here we've got another T11 or a T1. It's bouncing up, and also signaled by a slingshot, which is a T2. So just for me to explain it in a little more detail, it's not unusual to have 3 or 4 of our setups form at the same time. So here we have a T1, and we have a slingshot, and we also have the extension of a T11. That is, we've got a high low, and up it goes. Once we get up the top here, we can see here we got great angulation, and we have a T89 setup. Now the T89, our entry was not until here. Why? We remember we're waiting for our zero leg to roll over. The signal was there, and away we go. And that was actually good for 5 ticks. You would have been up 1 2 3 4 ticks, my apologies, 1 2 3 4 ticks you would have picked up there. Then you had a T1. Now up here I couldn't help myself. I was going out for dinner last night. It was around 7 p.m. I was due to meet some friends at 7:30, 8 o'clock for dinner, and I glanced at the charts and I saw this beautiful double top T7. So this is just a classic trade. I also had divergence on the platinum, and I had a falling long-term stochastic, so I shorted the market here with 10 contracts for 5 points. So it was worth around in euros compared to Australian dollars, worth around $800 in that short. So we can see here on the trade station it shows my trade entry and my exit. I'd limited out here at 5, and as you can see it would have kept falling very nicely. I could have picked up another 5 to 10 points. By that time I'd left, and then I had a perfect T89 set up. Once again, let's have a look at this here. We've got an angle away from our channel. We can see there my entry was up here, and bang, away it went. I then had, and let me scroll across here, I then had a very nice T10 set up. Notice I've got a rising stochastic, shows my market's rising, pull back, pull down of a short term, up it goes, and you would have been in that trade, and your stop would have been 1 tick below here. Up here I had a nice little T89. Well, it's not quite a T89, but it's really a mini double top. And if you had a look at this here, see you've gone up there a number of times. Your entry was not until this candle just here. So we had the paint bar there. Your entry was here, and it fell away very nicely. Down here I then had a T2. I then had a pivot bounce off the pivot. Okay, we went up there. There's nothing in this one here except you had some slingshots in here. Rising long-term stochastic. What does that generally tell us? The market's going to run up, which it did. No real trade opportunities for me here. You may have considered that a support resistance here. We've got a falling platinum. You may have shorted there. Here we had a pivot bounce. Up you go. Pivot bounces I tend to find on the European market work very well, as they do on the Nasdaq. Further along, we've got here another 89 bounce. It bounces very nicely on the 89, so that's a very nice trade along with the T1. So what we had here was a T1, the paint bar formed, and as most of you are aware, unless it's a slingshot, I do not enter the trade until I get my paint bar plots. So you can see here that's happened right here. I was in on that candle, away it went. Now when I say I was in, I was actually out, but I would have taken that trade. It's one of our classic setups. Down here we had another one. Here, what have I got here? Well, here I've got basically a double top, and you may have noticed my price action has basically fallen right below our zero line on the platinum. That is one of our classic divergence trades. Then we had an 89 bounce. Up we go. We had a T10. You still would have probably, unless you're only after 3 ticks, you might have still been in that trade. Actually you would have, my apologies, 1 2, you still would have been in that trade for another re-entry. So we can see here there is a ton of trading opportunities on the FESX. This is the 1000 volume. So the three I like to trade are the 55 tick, the 500 volume, and the 1000. My preferred is the 1000 volume. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to be kept up to date with my trading recaps, and to learn more about how our trades work and our trade setups. Thank you very much for watching.